completed by Toledo's lab could be conducted by the patrol, which would free up valuable analytical time for those lab personnel in Toledo. And there's no doubt in my mind that the introduction of this new technology will benefit everyone in law enforcement in Ohio. And I don't just mean the 2 machines we are getting. I'm talking about all of the machines. The simple fact is that Ohio is getting more NIBIN machines means that there will be a significant increase for law enforcement agencies to have the ability to process weapons in an expedited manner to get them the critical information from them that is needed to solve crimes and put bad people behind bars. And as we heard today, there is more important than ever because of that increased number of firearms that not only we're seeing, but our partners are seeing across Ohio, that we get this as under control as we can. Governor, again, I would like to thank you for the allocation of the funds, and again, for our partnership with AG Yost and Superintendent Morbitzer. I want to, at this time, introduce my friend and colleague, Greene County Sheriff, is Scott Anger. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Mr. Yost. Thank you, Superintendent. Again, it's very exciting as a new sheriff of a very diverse county in the state that has several medium-sized cities and several smaller villages to have this kind of opportunity. It's the same kind of excitement that we've had with Touch DNA and some of the different things with the rape kits we've had over the years. Before becoming Chief Deputy, I was working as the task force commander in Greene County for the Drug Task Force. I saw the collaborations around the region and the number of guns and violent crimes that were happening with us being so close to Dayton and all the different interstates. So when we make these kind of seizures and we make these kinds of events happen with the Drug Task Force, we have large numbers of guns that we're bringing in, and we did not have an outlet like this to get them identified and get them through the system and get hits on violent criminals. So just in our county within the last 3 weeks, we've had drive-by shooting at a restaurant where we find casings. We are slowly in our county getting involved in NIBINs, but this is going to be a big boost for us in our county to get more of our new cases into the system and the backlog cases in the system to get things moving and get violent criminals off the street. So again, this is an initiative that we are very excited about. I know we just talked in a chief's meeting the other day with our Drug Task Force Board of Directors about this very topic and how we were trying to do this same thing before this initiative. But this will be just a great opportunity for our county. Again, we have a very diverse county. We're 18th largest in the state, but we have lots of different political subdivisions. And it's going to be my job and my honor to try to get the word out to all the different agencies in my county to utilize this very important tool. So again, Senator Hackett, everybody up here, again, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity just to make a few remarks today. Again, this is a wonderful thing for law enforcement. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Governor DeWine.
We'll be happy to take any questions for any of the folks up here.
Attorney General, I don't know who can answer this, but how much of a problem is untested ballistic evidence in Ohio right now? And why haven't these weapons been tested? Is there a backlog? Have locals just not had access to these NIBIN machines until now? Why is this a problem?
So first of all, we are aware that there's lots of evidence out there over the years that didn't get submitted. How much? We don't really have a way of collecting that data. So there's enough anecdotal data. We know it's an issue. I can't really quantify it at this point, and there's not any requirement, of course, to maintain evidence indefinitely for ballistic reasons. Unless it's a homicide, it might well not be kept in a crowded local evidence room. There is not a backlog. Currently, the turnaround is about 5 to 7 days. But part of that is because we've got a lot of stuff that's not getting submitted. This work needs to get done. It takes time. It takes skilled technicians, scientists that are able to do the processing. So this additional capacity, we believe, will be sufficient to, if we were able to convince every agency to submit everything they had, we hope that we will be in a position to process that. One other thing that's kind of cool, when this is up and running, I neglected to mention this, it will be tied directly into the correlation center at ATF. Right now we have to submit that. That takes several days to process and turn around. Once we have the new machines in and have tied them in, this will allow for real-time results. And the last thing, I can see Carol O'Brien looking at me that I forgot to say. One of the problems we have is a lot of our rural areas, particularly in southeast Ohio, and Bob Cornwell from the BSSA is here. If you tell the sheriff in Meigs County that he's got to drive 2 hours, send somebody 2 hours up and 2 hours back to submit the evidence, guess what? It's probably not going to happen. So this grant includes 2 mobile units that will be able to go to the more sparsely populated parts of the state and set up shop and move from place to place. Very excited. That's a cutting edge kind of idea, and we believe that will help in some of the other areas to actually get the evidence into the system.
Let me just add one thing to that. You know, the Attorney General and I hope that because of this initiative, that it will become standard practice for law enforcement to have these run. And for all the reasons that the Attorney General has said, that is simply not happening today. We know statistically that if you run everything, you're going to see more matches. And that's really what the goal is. We need to keep in mind that we have close to 1,000 law enforcement agencies in the state of Ohio, somewhere between 900 and 1,000. That's a lot of departments, and it goes from big departments down to very, very small departments. So, again, part of the challenge is, you know, they really, if you're going to run these, you have to have trained people to run them, and you have to have the equipment to run it. And so what we're going to do, we're going to monitor this. We're going to take another look at it in 6 months and see how it's working. We think this will make a huge, huge difference. My hope is that we will see law enforcement agencies across the state start flooding the Attorney General's office and BCI as well as the Highway Patrol. And so if we look at that in the future and we're still not able to keep up, you know, we'll go back and do what we have to do to increase that. Right, Tom?
Governor, I have a question that you probably anticipated.
I'm sure it's on crime, right?
Of course it is. So you recently signed a permitless carry law here in Ohio. Social sciences correlated looser concealed carry laws to increase handgun homicides. So isn't that another way to reduce gun crime, and doing this, is that akin to chasing horses after they're out of the barn?
Well, there's nothing stopping a criminal. The criminal are the people you need to worry about. You know, we did a study, you've heard me say this, you're sick of me saying it, but we did a study when I was Attorney General. We went back, we had a professor at Ohio State, and we went back to 1974, I think, and looked at every single felony that was committed during that period of time that someone was convicted of. And what we found is that the violent crime is caused by a relatively small number of people, and they commit it time after time after time. So what we're doing today is going to have a significant impact on that. We have in addition to that, we have a bill pending with the legislature that we're urging them to pass, which would allow a judge to impose a very severe sentence and that would be up to the judge, no mandatory sentencing. But if that person is convicted of having a gun and being under disability, which simply means that they've been found guilty of a violent offense in Ohio previously and are not allowed to have it. What we're doing today and the passage of that bill will save a lot of lives because it will get a lot of violent criminals off the streets. In regard to the particular bill that you're talking about, that the legislature passed by a big margin and that I signed, the reality is that if someone wants, before that bill was signed, if a criminal wants to have a gun on them, they're going to have the gun on them. So the problem is people. The problem is the criminals. We got to go after the violent offenders and go after them and lock them up and keep them locked up. Anybody else?
So I understand that the technology identifies the gun that fired the bullet, but not who fired the gun. So can somebody connect the dots for us on how it's going to help?
I'll let somebody in law enforcement do that. We got a lot of sheriffs here, a lot of sheriffs with a lot of experience.
Sheriff Jamie Patton, Union County. It's going to take good old police work to look into the actual case and then do a lot of investigative work on the back end. So technology is great, but you're still going to have the physical human doing the work as far as interviews and follow-ups. So.
But let me just add. Sorry, Sheriff. Don't want to run into the sheriff here. There's a contact then made to that police department where the match is, and out of that contact, the two departments may be able to put something together. I mean, it's making a contact where there had not been a contact before, where you had no idea where this had been. And my understanding, and Karen can correct me, or someone out there, that basically what happens is that the gun is fired, and you're actually comparing the casing to another one. Is that correct? Is that how it's done? Okay, that's how it's done. But it's putting two departments together. Keep in mind, close to 1,000 departments, and putting those two together may, it certainly increases your chances of getting someone convicted. Some cases it won't pan out, there'll be nothing. But some cases it will.
Question for both Governor and Attorney General. First of all, when will machines arrive in Ohio? And Governor, if I heard you right, you said it wasn't standard procedure for law enforcement to enter all the evidence into this database. Why not make it standard so that the databases are up to date?
Yeah, look, we've been working for the last few years to try to get more uniformity with our local police departments. And we've created a working group. What's our group called, Tom? Here, come on and tell them about it. Come on.
Tom Stickrath, Public Safety. Yeah, the Law Enforcement Collaborative that brings together groups to set the standards for law enforcement in Ohio. And increasingly, we've added new standards to that realm and a lot of new departments. It's under the Office of Criminal Justice Services auspices with appointments from the governor. But it's been a very successful project over the years in really bringing some of that uniformity and raising the bar on a number of areas.
But the challenge is, and the reason you have to do it this way, is we have, as I said, over 900 police departments in the state of Ohio and sheriff's offices. They are independent. They don't work for me. They don't work for the Attorney General. They work for the people of the local community. And so they are making decisions, rational decisions about the deployment of their local resources. And some of them, many of them, have made a decision that unless there's some reason to think that this gun was used in a homicide, many of them they're just not doing it because of time, because of money. And so what we are doing with this is giving them the tools. I think, I don't want to speak for the Attorney General, but my philosophy has been that the role of the state is to assist local law enforcement by giving them more tools. And today we're giving them another tool.
If I could just, Karen, or Luann, you asked a good question there. And I'd like to flesh out the descriptions that were offered were accurate, but let me try to draw that in with a for instance. We got a drug deal. We know drug dealers move around, right? The supply chain, you got local people, but then you've got people that come in and deliver drugs. And so let's take, for example, a southern city, let's say Portsmouth, and there's shots fired. Nobody's killed, nobody's maybe even wounded, but there's shots fired. Police respond, collect the brass. Where's the crime? Well, you've got a firearm that's been improperly shot in the city. You might have an attempted assault, felonious assault, or an attempted murder, but you got nothing else, and you've got no evidence. So are you going to spend the time to send that up to Columbus if you're there? But let's say that same guy is also bringing it down from Detroit through Dayton into Cincinnati and then down across the river. Now in Cincinnati, where they had hundreds of thousands of shots fired last year according to the ShotSpotter statistics, I heard that, I haven't looked at the statistics myself. Somewhere over there, you've got a match. Now, there's two file folders, one in Portsmouth, one in the police department in Hamilton County, but they don't know each other exist. One of those folders has got a description of the person who shot the gun and the car they drove away in. Maybe a partial plate, maybe just a description, and it's just in there, and what are you going to do? It doesn't really, you don't have a lot of ways to go from there. But then over the file over in Cincinnati, they do have a partial plate, or maybe they've got a partial DNA profile off of one of those shell casings that they got. NIBIN matches them up. Now those two pieces, those two separate files can be combined, and that information is getting you closer to the bad guy. Now that's a real simplistic kind of description, but that's what goes on in the underworld, and that's why this tool is so powerful. But at the end of the day, it takes these folks to take those leads and chase them down. But they know more at that point and can use all kinds of other techniques that the law enforcement can spot. Cell towers, you know, where do the phones hit on the cell towers? And you start building it out, and eventually you get to the point where we think it's this guy, let's bring him in to talk to him. Yes, Marty?
Would you say it's fair then that this is analogous to the development of the fingerprint database way back when?
Yes, very, very much so. And it's also similar to CODIS, except not quite as good because DNA actually belongs to the human being, unlike the shell casing. But yeah, these databases prove they connect the dots, and that's what is so powerful for police work. I'm sorry? I don't have an update on that, Karen. Are we still waiting for the variables at ATF?
6 months from when we submit the PO. Once the check is cut.
Thank you.
Check's coming.
Will this require more people to be hired on a full-time basis, more lab personnel to run these machines?
Yes.
Where's that money going to come from on an ongoing basis to pay for this?
I'll answer that. Look, as long as I'm governor, we're going to have the money for it, so.
Curious about, you touched on it briefly about what other states have this, and how will we connect each state to this? Because it's great to have it here in Ohio, we're good, but to see what other states are doing.
Yeah, this is not a new system. And somebody a lot smarter than I can tell when this system came in, but it is not a new system. What we're really doing today is saying let's utilize it to the max here in Ohio. That's really what I think this is all about.
Luann, dovetailing on the governor and the attorney general,
Colonel Fambro and I had the opportunity to talk to the director of ATF. Right now, there's a pilot program going on in Kentucky where their submissions go directly to the correlation center, which is real-time turnaround at that point. So rather than waiting 7 days, 14 days to follow up, the investigators can follow up on that point. And to that point, with the governor's award of the grant, we are able to hire 2 new agents to sit on the ATF task forces to do the follow-up. Because one of the things, and I know the governor was very strong in the follow-up of the rape kits, but there were departments when we would give them the hit information, they just didn't have the means or ability to follow up. So we formed a cold case unit here to assist in that. That's what we're doing prior to receiving the submissions now, are putting people on those task forces to be able to follow up with ATF agents and do all of those, as we talked about, the shoe leather type work. So we learned from the past, and we're doing that preemptively now.
Is there any statistics on solvability with NIBIN? How successful is it in solving cases, do you know?
I don't have any data. Anybody want to take a shot at that?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
What the solvability rate with NIBIN is, you know how successful it is in terms of matches, in terms of solving these crimes you're trying to solve?
Yeah, again, NIBIN doesn't solve crimes, it produces leads. We can get you statistics on match rates, but in terms of closing out a case, successfully prosecuting, that really is all handled by local cops and local prosecutors, and we don't have statistics on that. I would further suggest that I expect the match rates to go up dramatically with the increased capacity and the increased submissions from law enforcement and the easier access with the mobile units. More data means more matches.
All right, anything else?
Governor, do you want to comment on the fallen officer this morning?
I really don't have anything to say beyond what the Attorney General said. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible day when we lose a law enforcement officer. And tragically, we lose them every year. And, you know, every year we have a ceremony out here with the Attorney General presiding, and it's, you know, we see families of those who have died. So law enforcement is inherently a dangerous job, and we need to recognize that, and we need to thank the men and women who are out there every single day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.